During the evening of December 29th, 1980, Betty Cash, Vickie Landrum, and Vickie's 7-year-old grandson Colby were headed back to Dayton, Texas. They had just finished up dinner in the New Caney area and they were traveling along FM 1485. It is believed that they were traveling through the Huffman section, and this would have been a type of a highway that was just one lane each way. It would have been quite dark at night, surrounded by tall pines. So as they came around the bend and saw something extremely bright ahead of them, they had no idea just how much their life was about to change. Well, thank you again for tuning in to a briefing of Second in Command, where we explore the known, the unknown, and everything in between. I'm Lou Monti, your host. The Cash-Landrum Incident of 1980 is always something that has stuck with me. As a young man, I had heard about it, and over the years, I've heard the story repeated a few different times. And it's really something that once you get to know more about it, it sticks with you because the debunkers have their certain way of pointing out and punching holes and stuff. But to me, it just doesn't make sense. A grandmother would not bring her 7-year-old grandson along for some type of hoax or what have you. To me, they certainly experienced something that evening. Exactly what it is, we'll probably never know. Even though we're supposedly entering some age of disclosure here, that is all yet to be seen. And what facts are put before us in time, one can only speculate. Getting back to this case, as he turned around the bend, and they came upon, the object. At this point in time, it's pretty obvious there was something either in the road or just above the roadway. It was diamond shaped, with the exception of maybe cutouts at the top and bottom, either for stabilization, landing, or propulsion. The craft did seem to be struggling. It was emitting either plasma or flames out the bottom. And as he pulled up and got closer, they noticed heat. It was akin to opening an oven, according to Betty Cash. So as they pull up closer, they had originally thought of maybe trying to turn around, and that did not appear to be an option to them, as the roads was just a single lane each side, and the shoulders were not able to pull up on, as it had rained earlier that evening as well. So Betty gets out of the car, and that is something here at Second in Command we generally do not recommend. However, she got out of the car, and Vickie did as well. Vickie did return to the vehicle a little bit quicker, as Colby was quite shooken up over the ordeal. Betty did get a little bit closer. She stayed out a little longer than Vickie. And soon thereafter, they had heard the drones or buzz and whirling of what unmistakably was helicopters approaching. And according to their accounts, it wasn't just a couple of helicopters. There upwards of 23 helicopters have been reported. An interesting detail nonetheless. At this point in time, the helicopter did appear to be not engaging with the object, but somewhat kind of escorted away. It kind of wafted along the sky and eventually made their way out of there. As Betty returned to the vehicle, it was still quite hot on the outside of the car, and she took, I believe, like from her coat to open the door to get back inside. And as she got back into the vehicle, she placed her hands on the vinyl dashboards, which her finger left imprints that were noticeable from thereafter in the future. Later that evening, all three of them started suffering health consequences. And over time, Betty's health was much worse. She had suffered from alopecia, loss of hair, and I believe it was breast cancer later on in life. She eventually passed away in 1998, and her health never really fully recovered. And It's been speculated, of course, the first thing most would think of is radiation. However, the doctors, examining all three of them, thought that radiation was a possibility. However, radiation experts over time have determined that their injuries were to the extent that had it been radiation, it would have been enough to probably kill all three of them, Betty, uncertainly, almost certainly immediately. So that's kind of been ruled out over time, and others bring up that it could have been some sort of chemical exposure, and just who knows what exactly their health issues would have been attributed to. But it's apparent that they all had immediate health issues, and over time, especially Betty, who was again outside the vehicle and got close to the object. So, with these concerns, they did actually end up hiring a lawyer, an attorney that worked pro bono, and they went to court. They had actually originally engaged with, I think, the Air Force at Bergstrom, which I believe was in Austin. And they ended up going to court. And due to the fact that no branch of the military acknowledged their presence there that evening, they actually brought the case up against what would have been the Department of Justice. Nobody denied what they seen. Nobody denied what they experienced. However, the judge had to throw the case out. It never made it to any type of jury. The judge threw the case out due to the fact that there was no specific entity that could be held accountable. And isn't that nice? If you say you weren't there, it wasn't us, you don't have to be held liable. It's always been something that has stuck with me, that these folks endured something, and for quite some time thereafter would never getting any type of explanation. So once again, this has always been a subject that has stuck with me over the years, and it'd be really something that you should consider taking a further deep dive into. There are plenty of other videos out there, plenty of other podcasts. The information isn't so strong, but there's more factors and more things to take into consideration. So once again, thank you for tuning in to an episode of Second in Command with Lou Monti. This is today's briefing. This was a really sparsely populated area. This was a darker stretch of highway surrounded by tall pines. Up ahead in the distance, they saw a shimmering light.